Well, Eddie, that's unbelievably generous. Thank you very much. And Seattle Interactive community, I'm really thrilled to be here. Thank you so much. I know that this is the second day of the conference, and you've been to a lot of sessions, and we're here late in the afternoon. So I really appreciate you joining. And I also think that Sir Mix-a-Lot is going now, so I'm really sorry you couldn't go to the session you tried to go to. Before I jump in, I wanted to introduce myself. As Eddie said, my name is Gabe. I'm Gabe Goldberg, and I wanted to tell you a little bit about what I've done. Hopefully after this, you can all come up to me and introduce yourselves, and I can get to know you a little bit better, but a round robin seems probably a little inefficient at this point. I'm a consumer marketer, and I was raised in Lake Oswego, right outside of Portland. I went to the University of Oregon. I studied marketing and finance. And I got my career start up here, one of our hometown heroes, Starbucks, in the brand development group. And after that, I moved to New York. I was there for about 17 years, and I've been back for a year. I'm currently the vice president of account services at Possible. But more than just a job title, I think I'm probably a lot like everyone else here. I don't like to define myself by a title. I think of myself as a problem solver. I like to figure things out. And I figured out a few things. When I first got my start at Starbucks, I figured out how to do really complex brand integrations and product placement deals before there was a department. And after I was in New York, I figured out how to launch an online print shopping magazine to men before that was done. And I figured out how to develop an app that allowed people with allergies to be able to proactively manage their symptoms. And that disrupted the traditional path to purchase, which was you advertise a pill, you have people go buy that pill, but this allowed people to do that without medicine. And I've also done research for a couple marketing books, and I had to figure out how in the world I was going to get experts across the world to be interested in what I was doing, because they had no idea who I was. But that was over the course of 17 years. And what I'd like to say is that the topic that I'm here to talk to you about today, I actually haven't figured out how to solve. And that's actually why I'm here having this discussion, because I need to talk to a bunch of professionals who are problem solvers, people who like to figure things out. And over the course of the last 5 years, things have changed a lot more rapidly than they have in the previous 17, which I'm sure you can all attest to. And I'm dealing with some of the issues that I think that probably every single person here deals with on a daily basis. So I'd like to talk about those for a couple minutes. We live in a global marketplace. No surprise, we all know this. Just to give a little bit of context, in 2011, Yahoo had a stake in Alibaba, which was valued at $40 billion. Year later, Alibaba wanted to grow faster than they could with Yahoo, so they spent $7.6 billion, and as of 2015, they're worth $168 billion. Growth is rapid, growth is now. Second, the cultural landscape of the United States is remarkably different today than it's ever been. Just a couple little facts. In 2011, only 5 states had legalized gay marriage. Now it's federal law. All 50 states, it's legal. In 2011, Syrian immigrants were an incredibly small part of the entire US population. As of now, we've got 12,000, and 10,000 of those just came in this year. And finally, a Pew study in February 2016 said that this election season is going to be the most diverse voters than ever before. That means 1 in 3 voters are either going to be Hispanic, Black, Asian, or another small minority. Whites have contributed less to the voting population than any other group, and projections show that that trend is going to continue. Third, everything is customizable. As a consumer, I want you to talk directly to me how I want so I can get it when I want. That's actually my Bitmoji. I'm a huge fan of Superman. Ideas tear through culture faster than ever before. In 2011, no one was talking about augmented reality, and as of July 6th, Pokemon Go launched, much to the joy and delight of every parent around the world. 2 days after it launched and became the #1 app in the App Store, the valuation of Nintendo shot up by $7.6 billion because of possible opportunity with Pokemon Go. And 2 weeks later, when Nintendo revealed that they didn't actually publish the game, their partner Niantic did, they lost $6.7 billion. The market was faster than the truth. That's a lot for a 2-week period. And finally, if you work in marketing or you're a brand or you're a company trying to sell something, it's harder to reach people than ever before. If you work in social media marketing, you know that your organic reach on Facebook is lower than it's ever been. Facebook says that's going to continue because of the way that they can continue to work with their algorithm. And ad blocking is very, very real. Depending on which study you look at and which country, somewhere between 20 and 50% of consumers on desktop and mobile are able to block you. So basically, if I don't love you, I can shut you out of my life forever. Marketing, when you strip it all away and you take away the buzzwords, is about connecting with people. And connecting with people is really, really hard. And in a more complex world, I pose one singular question. How do I make personal connections with people I've never met? I'd like to take us all back to a golden age of advertising in 1970. And I just want to share an example of a commercial and what it looked like back then.
How do you get shirts so clean, Mr. Lee?
Ancient Chinese secret.
My husband, some hotshot. Here's his ancient Chinese secret, Calgon. Calgon's 2 water softeners soften wash water so detergents clean better. In hardest water, Calgon helps detergents get laundry up to 30% cleaner. We need more Calgon. Ancient Chinese secret, huh?
Calgon helps detergents get laundry up to 30% cleaner.
Okay. Clearly that's not the best commercial in the world, but I'm using it to illustrate a point. We had less sophisticated means of doing research back then. We knew less about consumers then than we do now. And plane travel was more expensive, phone calls were more expensive, research was a lot harder, and the United States was less culturally diverse. So brand managers and creative directors and strategists were making decisions based on their own exposure. So as a result, a lot of entertainment, a lot of commercials relied on caricatures and archetypes that were solely based on what personal experiences were. So we look back now, it's a little cringeworthy, but it's at least understandable how something like that could be made. We have data now, and things are so much better for me as a marketer. I can't tell you how great it is to walk into work and work with my team. I know where you are, when you're there, what platforms you're using, which platforms you like, the content you like the most, because I have really sophisticated social listening tools like Sysomos or Crimson Hexagon. And when you post a piece of content or you look at a piece of content, I know how you feel about that. And I know what you're most likely to share. And when your friends go and like something or comment, I know how they're feeling about it too. I know that I should be serving you an ad around 10 or 10:30 a.m. because you're most likely to be taking a break from work, you're most likely to view my content, and you're most likely to share it. Point being, we're living in a time where I should literally be able to spoon feed you a piece of content you want, when you want it, speaking directly to you so that you love me. That is the dream of data right now. That is the dream of all of our tools. And sometimes it works exactly like that. So I want to show you something else. In 2014, Tylenol was returning to market. They had supply chain issues, and they needed to come back with a big campaign that reminded people why they matter, because they had other competitors. So they did some ethnographic research, just like we shared up front. They knew that the landscape of the United States had changed dramatically. They knew that culturally we looked different than we'd ever looked before. And this matters a lot to them because they're what's called a cradle-to-grave brand, meaning they have products for infants and children and adults. They also go up through arthritis, so they're dealing with a wide range of people. But, like most of us know, buying really expensive TV commercials is really expensive now, and it's very difficult to reach all of those people in those aid groups. So they picked a moment around fall when they were going to launch Thanksgiving. They knew that they could reach their target then, because they also knew that at Thanksgiving, they knew when people are most likely to be checking social media. They knew what people were talking about, and they knew that with the change in cultural landscape also comes some tension. What does an American holiday look like for people who are first-generation Americans. So they created this to start a conversation.
Norman Rockwell painted America's story for 60 plus years. When I look at the painting of Freedom from Want, that was my holiday experience with my family. Our definition of family is now expanding, so it's not this fixed picture of what the family is.
In our family, the hot pot is a great kind of metaphor.
It really does represent the bringing together of different generations and different cultures because, people get to put in what they want and they get to take out what they want. How about one of these? And sometimes they put in different things than they take out.
We're a family that's trying to raise our children. We just happen to be 4 parents trying to raise our children.
When I met Rachel and Craig, they were separated. Rachel and I started dating. And when we had Gabriel, and I thought about how the experience would be for him without a biological father, I just thought of Craig and just thought, it's going to be fine.
And we've worked hard to be the family that we are, but everybody right here is what matters.
Well, my mom, even though we didn't have very much, she always made sure that we had a great experience during the holidays. Sometimes it may not be a turkey, maybe the Cornish hens. That's why we celebrate with them. Yeah, what matters to me is my kids know that I was a good parent.
That I can leave a legacy for my children that matters to me. That there is something that I can leave them, something that will live on.
America's story and the story of Norman Rockwell as an artist are inextricably linked. What matters most is family, and that's timeless.
So things have gotten a lot better since 1970. And that's great because we're all content marketers. Whether you're a consumer packaged goods brand, or you're a platform, or you're an app, whether you're creating original or licensing your content, to some degree you are pushing something out into the world. You hope people do something with that, which is like your brand and want to buy your product or service. And that's how I see this relevant for everyone. And the great thing about this for Tylenol is that it was wildly successful for them. It was shared on YouTube alone. There's 3 million plus views, and they shared this content, which is great because at the end of the day, we're all looking for the same thing, whether you want a guest or a visitor or a user or a consumer. We want low-cost acquisition. We want people to use the product or service, and we want efficient loyalty, right? You want to spend less to get people coming back to you than it did to acquire them in the first place. So this is awesome. Data, segmentation, targeting, content, context, all worked. But it doesn't always work that way. And those are some of the examples I'd like to talk to you about today, because I think it's important to not just talk about the good, but also to talk about why there are misfires and how we can work to improve those misfires. Is everyone here familiar with the Daily Beast? Anyone? Yes? Great content site. I love it. They cover politics, entertainment, culture, art. And this summer, 2016, like the rest of the world, they turned their eyes towards the Rio Olympics. And like almost every other content site, every publication, they sent journalists down to the Rio Games. And like every journalist, they're looking for the best angle because they want reads and clicks and shares and likes because that's how they make money. So Nico Hines, their editor, released this article. I got 3 grinder dates in an hour in the Olympic Village. Now, when he's commented about this since then, he was reportedly down there and he wanted to do a story on how Olympic athletes were dating, and so he went to dating apps. He tried every dating app. He went on straight apps, he went on gay apps. Apparently he got no responses on the straight apps, but the one place he did get responses was Grindr. And he didn't publish any of the names of any of the athletes, but what he did do was publish their height, he published their weight, he published the games that they were competing in, and he also published their country of origin. Unsurprisingly, to me at least, this was the response. And Slate was not the only publication that covered this. This tore across the world, and the internet exploded in outrage. Now, there's a lot of things that we could talk about. We could talk about journalistic ethics, posing to be something that you're not, to try and extract a story. We could talk about whether he was unintentionally outing athletes who wanted to stay in the closet, and that's an important issue too. But more than that, he actually put people's lives in jeopardy. Because a lot of these athletes were actually from countries where it's either illegal to be gay, or if it's also illegal, it's actually punishable by death. And call me an optimist, but I just don't believe that Nico Hines had any intent to put anyone's life at stake. I think he was looking for the best angle possible, which is what journalists do. So then we've got two examples. We've got Tylenol, we've got the Daily Beast. Both are global brands, both produce content, both have the same amount of data, both know about the changing landscape. How was one successful and one so miserably failed? Well, what I can say about the Tylenol example is that they had a team of diverse stakeholders making these decisions. They had an Irish Catholic, they had Indian, they had an African, they had a Jew, straight, gay. They had all these people looking at the data, determining the strategy, and deciding on the content that was going to go into the market. The Daily Beast had a little bit of a different scenario going on. And I'm using these examples not to publicly shame them. I'm sure they've heard enough. But these are the profiles of the two public figures who were responsible for the content going into market, Nico Hines and John Avlon. And they share a lot in common. Both are unbelievably successful and lauded journalists. I think anyone would be lucky to have them on your writing and editorial team. But they're also straight, and they have wives, and they have kids, and they've since come out and made a huge public apology, and they've promised to do better. But this was then, and now we're in October, and they've released no plan, no understanding of what the new checks and balances were going to be, how they're going to diversify. And this is a situation where we're talking about people's lives at stake. So perhaps you're saying this to me. This is really interesting stuff. But look, I don't sell pain relievers. I'm not a journalist. I'm not going to touch lightning rod issues. That's just too dangerous. I'm not going to go there. My work is fairly innocuous. I make apps and utility. I work in analytics. I make non-offensive technology solutions. I build democratic platforms. I fail fast, improve, and optimize in real time. So I ask you, what could possibly go wrong? So I'm going to take you through 4 examples that I think help to talk about what's happening right now. And if anyone has any questions at any time, we can keep this conversational. You know the answer of how to fix this. You can interrupt me. Cheesecake Factory, I saw pumpkin cheesecake is back. It looks delicious. I'm happy to get off stage and go talk about that. So in 2013, emojis launched, and they launched with one skin tone, white. And this is really, really, really funky math. So, this doesn't take into consideration Android or iOS users, but let's just look at the total addressable market. Let's pretend they wanted to reach people somewhere between the ages of 10 and 44. And when we look at this chart, they almost had 69% of the total addressable market. That's amazing. It doesn't sell a product or service that wouldn't love to have that big of a total addressable market? Huge win. They also received a lot of requests for skin tones that looked more like the people that were using them, and they were a little slow to market. They didn't launch until 2015. And in 2015, when they launched, these are just some of the competitors that were already in the market. The market that they owned, the market that they dominated, they needed to cede to other people who were able to iterate and innovate faster. They lost their competitive edge. Now I'd like to take you through another example. Airbnb. Airbnb is an unbelievable platform. It's incredibly democratic. It allows people who have homes to be able to rent to other people who are coming. It is completely disrupting the travel and hospitality industry. And by all intents and purposes, their mission is pure. They want to serve people in ways they haven't been served before. But in 2015, Harvard released a study. And the study said that renters with either black faces or black names were less likely to be able to rent from an Airbnb owner than someone with a white face or a white name. And in 2016, this article itself was published in Medium in May, in an article called Stay Woke. This man talked about his experience on Airbnb. And he originally signed up. He booked the house he was going to go to for the 4th of July. Things seemed good. Then the owner got back to him and said they had decided to stay in town, so unfortunately they needed to cancel. So he decided to do something. He used the exact same stats. He put up a white picture and a white name. He reached out to the owner. He was able to rent. That's an issue. And it's also an issue that the CEO of Airbnb takes enormously seriously. He has not only publicly apologized and given a promise to do better, he's actually laid out a plan. So Eric Holder, Attorney General, is now on the board as of July. They've rolled out community guidelines where people who are joining the platform have to sign that they're not going to make decisions based on race, they're not going to be biased, they're not going to inject any racist content into the platform. And this is fantastic. And in addition to that, Airbnb also has the ACLU, the Congressional Black Caucus, the NAACP on board with them. So in 2017, they're going to be rolling out an entirely new set of tools to help improve the platform. And that's amazing. But my question to you is, could they have solved the problem before it became a problem? Airbnb has also released statistics on the makeup of their workforce. They're about 71% white, 7.1% Latino, 2.9% black. In addition to all of these rules, they have agreed that they want to take what's somewhere in the 9% range of underrepresented minorities to 11% by the end of 2017. And they've also started looking at recruiting differently. They're now recruiting from historically black colleges, and they're starting to implement far more sensitivity into the training and how they encourage people to work together because they recognized a huge blind spot that they had. Now I'd like to talk about Snapchat for a second. It is impossible to go anywhere in any social media or any marketing event without talking about Snapchat. And on April 20th, 420, they released a filter. The filter was an homage to Bob Marley. It had everything that you would expect from a Bob Marley filter. It had his knit cap, it has dreadlocks, and it also had a brown skin tone. Now, as you can imagine, the internet was none too happy with Snapchat. Everyone cried foul, accused them of promoting blackface, called the company itself racist. I don't care what business you're in or anyone who tells you the good PR is, or bad PR is good PR, but it's not. Especially in a competitive technology environment where you can go someplace else to get a filter. And this caused a huge disruption. Now, this was Snapchat's response. So let's look at this from another perspective. I'm a brand manager at Snapchat. I do a licensing deal with the Bob Marley estate, which they did. And I think, all right, these aren't my people. I don't know much about this. The Bob Marley estate blessed it. So maybe I just misfired. I think it's completely reasonable to think, look, he's a celebrity, he's a famous person, we have all those characteristics. I don't know what I didn't know, lesson learned, I won't do that again. Okay, mea culpa, forgiven. But 4 months later, actually less than 4 months later, Snapchat launched this. This is 46 years after that first detergent commercial that I showed you from 1970. Have we really progressed this far? For real? So this was Snapchat's response this time. They hadn't learned the lesson from 4 months earlier. Forget about 46 years earlier. They didn't know what they had done just a few months earlier. And Evan Spiegel, their CEO at Recode, said that he takes diversity really seriously, but it's not cool to quantify it. And he won't release any statistics on the makeup of his workforce, which is actually sort of unusual for a tech company. Twitter and Facebook have both done it. They're about 57% white at the managerial level. And just a cursory look, when I went on LinkedIn, looked up Snapchat employees, I can tell you, and this is not formal data, but their skin color looks a lot like mine. So, you're asking at this point, I work with teams, I work in huge companies, what can I do? I mean, when I go back to the office, I'm still working with the same people. How can I do things a little differently? Well, you can solicit opinions from people who don't look like you. You can make recommendations. And if nothing else, you can be aware that there may be cultural nuances or differences that you're not aware of. You don't need to know what all those things are, but just be aware that you may have some blind spots. So I say, we've got all the data we need. I've gone to so many conferences like you all, what I've heard of the benefits of big data, and it's incredible. But we have the wrong people looking at the right data. And I'd like to take you through one more example. On August 11th, BIC launched a Women's Day initiative. This was meant to be empowering to women in South Africa. This was their message. Ladies, what do you think? Think it was positive or negative? Boo, that's exactly right. So this came across as paternal, out of touch, dated, everything a brand doesn't want to be associated with, right? So something that was meant to be empowering did exactly the opposite. And not only that, this world is global. Social media is real. This tore through culture. I live in the US. I'm not connected to the South African women's pen market at all. Yet it showed up in every trade publication. It showed up on social media. It showed up in national stories. So, again, I want to be fair, so I want to take an optimistic viewpoint. Look, they didn't have social media. They didn't have all their rules of engagement in place. An agency did this. They had a junior copywriter. They had a junior art director. They had a junior client. I don't know. I'm making this up, right? I'm trying to be forgiving here. Maybe they just made a mistake. Maybe they had no way of knowing, and it was like, we accept their apology and good to go. Except we know that this happened just 3 years earlier.
So, on my show, what I like to do is I like to promote kindness and equal rights, and I don't like labels, and I don't see color. I'm like a Cocker Spaniel in that way. And I don't like pointing out differences between people, especially men and women, and I thought that women, we've made a lot of progress towards equality, and we're allowed to vote, and I think since 1982 now, and we can wear pants, we can drive at night, all those things have happened. And then I saw something that makes me think we still have a little bit of ways to go. It's a new product from BIC, the pen company, and they have a new line of pens called BIC for Her. And this is totally real. They're pens just for ladies. I know what you're thinking, it's about damn time. Where have our pens been? Can you believe this? We've been using man pens all these years. Yeah! And they come in both lady colors, pink and purple. And they're just like regular pens, except they're pink, so they cost twice as much. That is absolutely true as well. The worst part is they don't come with any instructions. So, how do they expect us to learn how to write with them, I was reading the back of the pack. Well, I had a man read the back of the package to me. And it said it's designed to fit a woman's hand. This is all true. I'm not making any of this up. Designed to fit a woman's hand. What does that mean? So when we're taking down dictation from our bosses, we'll feel comfortable and we'll forget we're not getting paid as much? I don't know. I mean, just think over the last 20 years, companies have spent millions of dollars making pills that grow men's hair and fix men's sex lives, and now ladies have a pen. Wow.
So that wasn't just limited to Ellen 3 years earlier. All you have to do to see how women were responding to these pens is go on Amazon. And when you look at the reviews of these pens, some of them are just as funny as what Ellen said. Some of them are not, but all of them are not flattering. They had all the data they needed to be able to make the right decisions. There are literally thousands of points along the commercialization process where data is collected. When you're doing upfront segmentation, where you're looking at the product launch, where you're doing package design, where you're testing commercial ideas. And people in the very company that were creating the product and creating the communication were completely tone deaf to how people were receiving the products and communication they were putting on the table. But I want to pause for a second, because thus far, the only thing we've talked about is, we've shown this beautiful, emotional example that Tylenol did that was all about diversity. It was sentimental, it was earnest. And I don't know about you, but I like to have fun, and I want to market. So if I'm figuring out how to talk to different people of different cultural backgrounds, I don't want to always have to approach it so seriously. I think I'd kill myself if that was the only thing that I could do. So I want to know how we can have a little fun, because comedy is a pretty valid form of communication, wouldn't you say? Kotex launched a new line of tampons, pads, and liners. They wanted to completely disrupt the entire category, and they wanted to do it with a wink. So this is how they launched.
Hi, I'm a believably attractive 18 to 24-year-old female. You can relate to me because I'm racially ambiguous. And I'm in this tampon commercial because market research shows girls like you love girls like me. Don't all these angles make me seem dynamic? Now I'm going to tell you to buy something. Buy the same tampons I use because I'm wearing white pants and I have good hair. And you wish you could be me.
You by Kotex, a new line of tampons, pads, and liners.
This was part of an entire campaign that rolled out for them, and it was enormously successful. It disrupted an entire category that was owned by Procter & Gamble. This was the Kimberly-Clark brand. And they earned more sales share than they ever expected to get. And not only that, this was actually only ran as a TV commercial. Women went to their TV, recorded this, uploaded it to YouTube, and shared it. And not just that, men started sharing it. And for all the guys I've talked to, no one hates talking about tampons more than men. They were sharing it on their page and said, finally, this is so fun. My girlfriend and I can finally have this conversation about it. So this worked. But what's the line? Where's the difference between joke and outrage? Where's the difference between nuance and offense? I'm not exactly sure. I really don't know. And this is the conversation I want to engage in. What I do know is that misfires happen, we have limited exposure to other cultures, and we don't have an internal motivation to change. Do you remember that Tylenol example up front? The beautiful Tylenol example, all the families. I worked on that project. And would you like to know how I sold that in? I was so confident, I was so happy. When that was just a seed of an idea, I knew it was can't lose. So I sold it as a piece of Americana that every single person was going to instantly recognize. Would you like to know who I tried to sell that idea to? Two gentlemen, first-generation Americans, with zero concept of who Norman Rockwell was or the references I was using. Do you know how stupid I looked? Fortunately, I was in a situation where I had enough of I had enough of rapport built up with them where we could actually talk about it. But I embarrassed them in front of people that they worked with. I embarrassed myself. I embarrassed my team. And we were able to recover it and talk about the references that mattered, but my own blind spot, my own assumption that everyone shared the same background and cultural sensitivity I did was completely wrong. And in the end, certainly not the people I was trying to serve. So I went a level deeper. And this isn't scientific, but what I did do was ask a wide range of marketers across the country a very simple question. This was the criteria for me to ask that question. They either needed to be college educated or have a master's. They needed to work somewhere in marketing. That could be on the product development side, that could be research, that could be analytics, that could be for a brand, that could be for technology, that could be for an agency. And the company that they work for needed to be global, meaning they needed to do business in multiple countries, not just the United States. And the question was, how have you seen diversity handled in your work environment? I was asked to keep these anonymous. I think you'll see why. But these were some of the responses I received. This makes me extraordinarily uncomfortable for a number of reasons. Number one, this shouldn't be happening. Number two, these are from the people who should know better. These are the people, these are the experts. These are the people that are making innovation, product choices, communication decisions. These are the people making a lot of money to market products and services. But the other reason that this makes me uncomfortable, and this is hard for me to look at, is I know that at some point I have been in a meeting, in a room somewhere, and someone said something, and I did not have the tools to be able to talk about this. So I didn't. So there were moments when I said nothing. So to some degree, if I'm not participating or I'm not helping to solve the problem, I'm perpetuating it. I'm promoting it. And I want to figure out how not to do that so that we can all win and all earn the best competitive advantage possible. So, this is implicit bias or unconscious bias. You take a fact, something you may know, and you misappropriate it to everything because you assume that just one thing is relevant to all those people you're talking about. And this is how huge mistakes happen. Right now, diversity is treated as a human resources issue, right? You go in, you talk, you go through your little checkbox. We went through it at work. We had to click some things, and I need to be on each screen for a certain amount of time to prove that I read it. But it's really just used as risk mitigation. So if something happens in the workplace, your company is covered. And it's incredibly important to have human resources invested in this. But it's far deeper than just some checks and balances that you do when you just start that job in the beginning. This is about who we are as business leaders. This is about smarter strategy. This is about better communication. And we need to go much deeper than just this in order for us to do better. So I talked with a black director. He creates black film, TV, web content, commercial work. And I asked him about this problem because the people that he deals with, he sells his TV show ideas or his film ideas to studios or networks who are traditionally white. And I asked him what he thought, and he said, despite continual evidence, the black audience spend money to hear black voices. TV shows or movies that focus on black or niche audiences have to hit a home run. Otherwise, it validates existing biases that they don't work, and it creates a much higher bar just to get in the door. What that means is, the way he sees it, the audience is there, but the people making decisions aren't trained to hear that audience. So they're completely overlooking a huge market opportunity. It's not surprising to me that the president of ABC Entertainment is a black woman. They have turned out unbelievable shows. If you watch Blackish, or Fresh Off the Boat, or The Goldbergs, or The Real O'Neills, Modern Family, she's found a way to organize her team to not just develop content, but develop really great shows to serve a variety of audiences, and doing it while entertaining and teaching. So this is happening. This is happening in agencies. Clients are demanding it. But as we've seen, it's not just an agency problem. It's not just a technology problem, not just a consumer packaged goods problem. It's an us problem. It's a business problem, and there's a real business solution. So I ask you, do we want to wait until some external force mandates us to go through this, so then we can work on our plan and spend 6 months developing it, and submit it to whoever is approving it, whether that's your client or whether that's your agency management, and then you can start hiring and then you can start training, by which, at that point, you're going to be at parity with everyone else. Or is there something that we can do right now? Is there some way where we can stand up and say, I want a competitive advantage. I want to win. I want to be successful at whatever product or service I'm selling, and I want better communication. I'm asking for your help because, like I said up front, which is not a presentation shtick, I don't know how to solve this. But what I do know is that we've got better tools now than we've ever had before. I know that social media can help us communicate. I know that I can learn from people across the country who think far differently than I can. I know that we've got virtual reality and augmented reality that could help me experience someone else's experience so that I can become more compassionate and empathetic and learn something I didn't know. And I know that you're all a bunch of change agents, technology giants, problem solvers, and business leaders, and that's why I'm here, and that's what I want from you. So look, I know that I may only be talking to 3 to 5 people in this room. I'm very aware of that. But I'm asking you 3 to 5 people for help, because forget if you like me, and I really want to solve the problem, but the problem needs to be solved. And I think that there are people in this room that can help solve this. So here's what I propose. This is a meetup group I've started. It's called All of Us. And I'd like anyone who's interested to join. I'm talking people from human resources. If you work with a developer that you think's great that couldn't make it here, include him. I need marketers. I need people from PR. I need people from agencies. I need strategists. I need people from media. I need everyone. And Pete Chapman, the director that we talked about, has agreed to fly from New York and give a talk, and whenever this first meetup ends up happening. And he said he's going to talk about 2 things. He's going to talk about some of the challenges he's had developing content and selling content, but he's also going to talk about solutions. He's going to talk about how he's worked with his teams on his end to be able to bust the biases that they have, because this isn't about white people having biases or black people having biases. It's about all of us having biases. And he's also going to talk about when he's been selling those to studios and to networks, how he's helped those people get over some of their natural hurdles just because they don't know what they don't know. So here's the ask, Seattle Interactive Conference. Shoot me an email right now. I know you have Wi-Fi. I know we're getting phone reception. You may not have downloaded the Meetup app, but my email's right there. Shoot me a note. All you have to say in the subject is SIC out of sight, or heck, just say SIC and I'll respond back. Probably no one else is going to just email we with the subject that says SIC. But I would love to hear from you. If I get 3 people, if I get 1 person, I will talk to that person, and Pete is still going to come out, and I can tell you I know him really well. He is an unbelievable speaker. He produces unbelievable content, and he's just a good person to know. So that's my ask, and that's my talk. Thank you very much.